Hi, today we're going to learn how to thread a laminator with laminating film. Now the directions we're going to provide today are generic directions, and although they will apply to most laminators, for best results we always suggest that you consult your operator's manual for directions that will be unique for your particular laminator. Now before we load film, let's take a look at some of the key features that will play a role in loading this laminator with film. Up here we have an upper supply mandrel. It is this mandrel that will hold the upper roll of film. Now the supply mandrel has one rounded end, and on the other side is a half rounded end. This half rounded end is going to fit into a half round slot on the right hand side of the machine. This is done to ensure that we load the film correctly on the laminator. Right below the upper supply mandrel is a bar that turns. This bar is called an idler bar. Our film from the upper roll will be threaded behind this bar so that it hugs the upper heat shoe. This is the upper heat shoe. We have a lower heat shoe right below it. And between these heat shoes, in the back, not visible, are two nip rollers which will take the film and pull it through the laminating machine. Here in the front of the machine we have a lower supply mandrel. This mandrel is similar to the one up on top with one rounded end and one half rounded end. And this half rounded end of the bar will fit into the half rounded slot here in the bottom portion of the machine. There are two more bars below the laminator here. The one that is directly underneath the heat shoe is another idler bar, and you will see that this bar spins. The bar here to the front is simply a tie rod that helps hold the laminator together and provide stability. This bar does not turn, and film should never be thread under this bar, but rather it should be thread over the bar and behind the idler bar. Okay, let's load some film. Now film is used on a roll laminator in pairs, and it is sold in pairs. Okay? When you take the film out of the box, you're going to see that there's a shiny side of the film and a dull side of the film. This is important. The dull side of the film is the adhesive side, and it is the dull side that should always face us when we load the film. When we load film with the dull side facing us, that means that the shiny side is always facing the laminator. Very important. Number one rule, matte side faces us, shiny side faces laminator. Okay. We insert our upper supply mandrel into the core of the roll. Place it on the upper part of the machine. Take our film and get it out of the way. We're going to do the same on the lower part. Notice also that the film is going to come off the lower part of the roller from underneath. Okay. We insert the supply mandrel and place the film on the machine. Okay, so now we have two rolls of film loaded on the machine. Now we have to thread it. Okay, so we're going to take the bottom roll of film here and we're going to work it behind the lower idler bar. Okay. Once we have it loaded and threaded behind the lower idler bar, just let the film dangle here on the table. We're going to do the same thing up here on the top. Just pass the film behind the idler bar and you'll see how nicely it hugs the heat shoe. I'm going to pull a little bit of this film back and let it dangle so there's just enough film that comes down below the lower heat shoe. Now I'm going to take my lower roll of film and drape it up over the top. As I do this, I'm taking a look to see whether the bottom roll of film matches the upper roll of film, so that they're the same distance left to right. And I can see that I'm off by about 1/8 of an inch, so I'm just going to scoot that roll over a little bit so that the film matches. Okay. Now I've got my upper roll of film now dangling down here below the lower heat shoe. I've got my lower roll coming up over, and right here at the heat shoes I have now two layers of laminating film. This is going to provide a sandwich that's going to take our threading board and bring it through the laminator. With our quality laminating film, we always provide threading boards with our film. If you don't have a threading board, take a rigid piece of cardstock or a manila Oxford folder and use that to help carry the film through. Okay, so now we turn on the drive rollers and we're going to insert our threading board into the nip of the rolls. Okay. Now, we've already mentioned that rule number 1 of laminating is that the matte side of the film must always face us, shiny side faces the laminator. Number 2 rule of laminating is that what goes into the machine must come out the back end. Right, so as we feed through, we're going to reach behind and make sure that this threading board and the laminating film exits the machine. And now I'm going to pull this up to the top to show you how the threading board does come out. We turn off our drive roll now that all the film is thread through. And we'll save the threading board for the next loading operation. We now have laminating film properly threaded on the laminator. You'll see that the matte side faces us. Okay? Now we'll turn the heaters on and allow the laminator to come up to temp. When it does so, you will see that the laminating film that touches the heat shoes will become clear. And as the laminating film now becomes heated, it will become a bit more rigid as it exits the machine. Okay? Thanks very much for watching. Goodbye.